This one shouldn't take nearly as long. There's a lot less, I think, to complement it.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's also not, full of lore and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't know. You'll have to tell me. Maybe this was like, the new next season. There will be like a person from this planet in the crew.
They don't even get a Starfleet uniform. They're just in that terrible bikini thing.
Mm.
You're listening to the Great and Secret Knowledge, a speculative fiction podcast. I'm Jeff, and welcome back, Sophia.
Hello.
Hello. It's Star Trek Day once again, and we've got quite a memorable episode of historical significance, sort of. There's some interesting stuff between the Doctor and Wesley, even though they're almost never in the same scene together. We're talking about Justice, Season 1, Episode 6, or if you're on Amazon Prime, Episode 7. So, yeah. Sophia, what did you think of this one?
I liked it. I thought it was fun, to see where it was going. A lot of the times, or I guess I shouldn't say a lot of the times because I haven't watched that many yet, but when I watched these, I tried to see like which tropes are they doing, or what is the different directions that they're taking it. And I enjoy this juxtaposition, with they have this weird time machine people, and then they have like this machine in the, eye in the sky machine in space. And I thought it was, I was very surprised. I was like, oh, there's some kind of god machine up there. I enjoyed it.
Okay, so Trek tropes, alien being that's protecting the planet. We've already seen that once in Encounter at Farpoint. The sort of semi-celestial being with multiple entities. We've seen that in Deep Space Nine. Like, you haven't yet, but we see it in Deep Space Nine, Star Trek Voyager, the season premiere, the series premiere, first episode, called The Caretaker. Although in that case, I guess it was a single entity. But anyway, throughout the history of Star Trek, we've had some of this, a sort of more or less benevolent entity that protects a group down on the surface. We've also had one which kind of comes up in this episode, of a celestial being that keeps a society stagnant and, just sort of pleasant, but it has borders around it. And we've seen that in Star Trek Discovery, as well as the original series, I think. Yeah, the original series. It's kind of an Eden where people all look beautiful and shit, and there's an entity that is a lot more malevolent, kind of like it just treats the people sort of like friendly pets. And so if you've seen that one, you're like, ooh, is there a sinister element here? And it's like, no, it's just whoever's in space who we never even get a name for. So they call it God. Basically, they're just sort of benevolent.
Yeah, but I like when they first introduced, it does feel very hostile. So I enjoy that as the contrast to the very calm and, pleasant people in the earth. And then it's just like this, when it comes with the bubble, inside, and when it speaks, it's like hurts all their ears and all this. So it's very threatening when they first encounter it.
Oh yeah. That there's a being kind of like that in the Dresden Files that Harry calls Alfred. It's this like potent eternal spirit that protects this island. And eventually you find out why the island is important, but at first it speaks so loud that it almost like blows up Harry's ears, and he's like, hey man, cool it down a bit. Whereas here the alien only sometimes yells and it shakes the ship or whatever.
Yeah. And I was thinking about something regarding to that, but I forgot now what I was going to say. Maybe it'll come to me.
You mentioned the bubble, the protective bubble that comes in. What'd you think of that effect?
Oh, I liked it. Yeah, I remember now what I was going to say is that we have seen already so many times. I feel like, I mean, at least like so many instances throughout on these few episodes, people just coming into this ship, just like, we're in here now. And, we have the other in the pilot, and we have this bubble just blowing in. And I wonder, I enjoy it, but it's also becomes a little bit like anybody can come in at any time. And I wonder if in the future they will have like this, will they upgrade the technology, or will it just be like, sometimes aliens just float into our command bridge.
Yeah, they meet so many gosh darn godlike beings. In Doctor Who, it's like it should be nigh impossible for anybody to enter the TARDIS without being invited, and it happens constantly. Like there's always some uber powerful being sneaking in.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how I feel like, I feel like if this is this common, this already happened twice, then I feel like they should just expect it from now on. They should be like, oh, another alien is here. Okay, this is just the normal time for us.
Yeah, so freaky invader protocol.
Yeah.
Gosh, I wish I could remember how they handle it in the original series.
Did they also have people popping up on the bridge? Or is that what you're
Yeah.
trying to think?
Yeah, I feel like the first time it happens, Kirk and everyone else whips out their phasers, or at least they're really hostile. Whereas here, Picard is just like, what am I going to fucking do? Like, I already dealt with Q. Like, if they can get onto our bridge, we got to, like, not be hostile because anything could happen.
It is an interesting, I suppose, interesting situation where, like, somehow, you have this, like you said, a godlike being, and then, how do you handle it? And I don't know, it could be, if there was I don't know, if it was like a prolonged thing, it would be interesting to see like how humans would adapt to, we are not really used to having this kind of being toyed with. Like, I wonder if it would affect the culture, or if that there's other things that are much more advanced.
Okay, well let me think about this. In Star Trek Deep Space Nine, there's this wormhole that they find in the first episode, and inside it are these sort of beings from out of time. And the planet of Bajor that the wormhole is near, their entire world religion developed around the fact that these, what they call the prophets, exist and interact, and it comes up from time to time. Like the captain of the station or the commander of the station even is like becomes like an avatar between the prophets and the people. And so he's got his Starfleet job, and then he's got this fucking religious significance that he has to deal with. I'm trying to think of any others. Usually it's like this. It's like godlike being shows up, says, get the fuck out of here, or let me play around with your emotions, and then they are gone next week. But to have them like, yeah, like constantly in your business, or like a constant sort of presence off screen so that you know they could pop in at any time. Q's a little bit like that, but he's mostly just obsessed with Picard rather than all of Starfleet or the entire Federation.
Oh, yeah. I feel like it would be very encouraging for religion, you know, if there are god-like beings there, maybe people would be like, we also have a god-like being, like it's, you know, it's like almost like a proof of God if you see this kind of aliens that can just do whatever they want and have these mysterious powers.
I love the ancient aliens theories. Now, as a grown-up, I know that in many ways they sprang out of a need for humans to explain other societies or like events that have no justification, like earthquakes or floods or whatever, no ability to counteract. And so you have to come to terms with them. But yeah, in Deep Space Nine, the people have come to terms with the idea that learning what the prophet's desires are for them is like the most important part of their society. So priests are like super important, because if they can predict like they were invaded and occupied by a foreign power and they eventually got rid of them, and the religious people were part of that process. I mean, the shittiest thing about gods on this planet is that they don't actually talk to us. You know?
Yeah, I guess it would depend on how direct, you know, they were.
Yeah. Yeah, in that other episode of the original series with the godlike being, I think it did talk to them, but mostly just to be like, don't do this, don't do that, you know, sort of a Old Testament God, the God of Abraham and Isaac, that supposedly is the God people worship now. But if you read those early books of the Bible, he was just like one of many, and he got really big for his britches, and he decided to like become the God of all gods, and then eventually was like, stop worshiping those other gods, they're not good enough. And he said, I'm a jealous God. Like half of the commandments in the 10 Commandments are basically just how to make me the best and ignore all the others or destroy them. It's the basis for a lot of Abrahamic violence, which is particularly relevant now. Anywho, that's enough for godlike beings for now. What else? Anything stand out overall? What did you think of the guest actors in this one?
They were fine. I didn't really. None of them made that much of an impression. What did you think? Did you have any that you thought were good or bad?
I thought the direction on this, it's hard to tell the actors necessarily. I feel like the direction didn't get their best out of them. I thought one of the mediators did kind of angry sort of competence well. But none of them had much to do in terms of emotional range. You know, they were fairly
I think
contained.
That's it. They're meant to be like childlike and a little bit strange. So it's hard to do a lot of emotion with that, I suppose. But I was thinking, I guess with the mediators, I thought that they took turns being mediators, but I guess that's not it. I think that they had the same people.
Yeah, it's like they work in pairs.
Mm.
I mean, it's a function of TV, like you keep the cast small
Yeah.
as you
Yeah.
can. Whereas in our world, there'd be hundreds of people representing the state in different
That's true. I guess for
times.
some reason I just thought when they talked about it, I thought that they had like every day they had different people who were mediators, but I don't know if that's
Oh,
just me making it up.
so I figure they have two mediators for like each area of where
Mm.
they live. And at that moment, the punishment zone just happened to be the capital.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, like, when he fell into the flowers, it's like, whoops. And then fucking 10 minutes later or 5 minutes later, the zone has moved on. I wish there was a visual effect to tell us,
Yeah.
you know, what they should have.
Mm.
No, this wouldn't work for their society. But I think going forward, what they should have is little stanchions with a light that like it lights up when the punishment zone is there.
But you
then it would
can't
defeat
know
the
if
entire
it's
purpose.
yeah, you have to have some kind of but yeah, it would be hard. How did they know that this how did they keep track of it? They didn't have any electronics or anything. They didn't have any maps, but maybe that's part of they learn all of by heart. And could you
The
bribe them to be
mediators,
like, when
though,
is it gonna be? Yeah.
yes. Okay, here we go. This is great. I didn't think we'd have anything to talk about, but here we go. The mediators would have an outsized influence on society because they surely are warned of which area is going to be the punishment zone so they can
Mm.
get close to it, right? Or station some people over there.
Yeah.
And so if they knew corruption would be inevitable because somebody that wants to industrial pollution or whatever, like white collar crime type thing, they just cozy up to the local mediator and be like, hey, let us know when that punishment zone goes active, and we'll stop bootlegging or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like that. And it would be all this, yeah, like you said, to learn about it. And I guess, but I think that also at first, when they talked about people die if they're in the forbidden zone, or I thought it would be like this kind of laser from the sky, it's like zoom, zoom, killing someone who did any kind of crime in this area. But then we find out that actually there are the people enforcing it. So maybe they are doing everything. Maybe it's not even, maybe they are determining how the zone should move and they are doing all of this stuff.
Right. It has to be, unless it's an AI like down on the planet, which we don't get any indication of that level of tech. It's got to be like a low tech thing with like flags or I don't know, horns or drums, like smoke signals, like because they were Johnny on the spot, right? They just they were there in an instant.
But I feel like it was maybe something like I don't know. I think it could just be that they are at this location and then they move, just kind of around in the area. And maybe it's one of those things, that people feel like they need this, but actually in reality they don't really need this. Maybe they're more moral than they think. So they're just like, oh, we need this punishment. And then if it went away, they wouldn't have that much problem, maybe.
It's interesting that we never get a timetable on like how long it's been going like this. Because, yeah, unless you have an eternal AI or gods up in space monitoring constantly, that wouldn't be stable. Like civilizations don't stay the same for that long. Like in Mistborn, it lasts 1,000 years, one government and one eternal being, and like, oh, spoiler alert, and like the Roman Empire, for example, lasted a long time, hundreds of years or 1,000, somewhere in there, but it wasn't stable that entire time.
No,
there were things
changed.
that changed.
Yeah, during the time it changed. But Yeah, I think that the way it's described here is that these people are some kind of, they're watched over for a purpose. I feel like this, it's not just like, oh, we want to keep it like this. That maybe they're supposed to evolve or or do something. But I guess I don't know. I mean, it seems like they were content and everything. So maybe maybe there was not a lot of drive to change.
Man, now I just want to know all the logistics. Part of it too is like production reasons. They can't give us a bunch of flashing lights or an AI that's like monitoring the punishment zone. Or if there's a guy on they could have done a guy with a map table and he moves things with like a croupier wand and dressed like a general, but in a bikini general. Well, shit, we can't get down into the specifics. Let's bounce around a little bit. I got a few quotes. So it's the Rubicon star system. There's a weird crew on the bridge at first. Like they just, for some reason, wanted to show us shift change. Dr. Crusher pops on and interrupts Troy. The doctor suggests shore leave. So the real crew pops on, and then Riker has this shit-eating grin. He's just like, man, they're happy down there. Can't wait to get down there. And then there's a little go around the bridge. I have a soundbite.
They're wild in some ways, actually puritanical in others. Neat as pins, ultra lawful. They make love at the drop of a hat.
Any hat.
I was confused about this. Is it that because they were only heterosexual, all of them? So I thought maybe it was a joke that they would like make love to in whichever combination.
Okay. Star Trek in this era was super horny generally, but they wouldn't have risked America's disfavor by being that forward thinking, you know what I mean? Including gays and bisexuals and ace people, and like the broad range of sexuality.
Yeah, I wasn't really expecting it, but I'm not sure what the hat thing was then referring to. Is it just like, oh, the hats are dropping easily, or I don't know?
That's a great question. That'd have been funny if they're assigned a hat when they get there. And Geordi just like drops his in front of, I don't know, sexy Bruce or whatever. Bruce. Why did I choose that? Larry, Steve.
I thought Bruce was maybe one of the people, but we don't learn their names, right?
We only get two names. We get Ravon and Leotor.
Oh, okay. I forgot we learned any names. But I was going to say it's funny when Picard goes, talks about the planet and he's just like doing this report. And then it's like, the planet is unusually lovely. And I was like, that's nice to include in the report.
It's unusually lovely. So we actually go outside this time, like production goes on location. It's probably like a mile away from the studio.
Yeah, I was wondering, where do you think the location is?
Shit, it might even be on studio. Like, I don't know much about Hollywood, but I can't imagine they went that far. It just looks like a nice outdoor building with like green lawns.
Yeah, but it is. I like. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I like when they have this shore leave discussion because they do make it seem very safe and still kind of like should we? So I like this as the setup.
And we get the first of a ton of, well, maybe it's already even happened, but Picard says, let's just hope it's not too good to be true.
Yeah.
And that's like, that could be the theme to like half of Star Trek episodes, What's really going on here?
Yeah, I can imagine. It's not that fun if it's just like, oh, everything is fine. And then it's like, looks really nice. And it is nice. I guess they could have something where someone suggests a thing and then it turns out to actually be nothing. And they're just like, oh, okay. Maybe it's too suspicious.
That might be the B story of that episode that's just like a day in the life on the ship. Like all the interesting stuff. Maybe Lower Decks. Anyway, some episode where like the really interesting stuff is not the mission. The mission is really pretty perfunctory. What did you think of the Edo? Their look, their vibe?
I was gonna make a joke that they were like, it was racist towards Swedes, but then I thought maybe it was like that they're meant to be like, because they're all blonde, and I was like, oh, this is, you're saying the Swedes all want to have sex with everyone. And then I was thinking
so
that
what are some differences culturally between Swedes and these weirdos?
We have more clothes on. And like more flattering, you know, more flattering clothes.
Clothes are absurd.
But then I thought it's more about, you know, they're blonde because they're this, you know, childlike beings. So I suppose it's more that than the sex part. And then they reminded me a lot about there's the Time Machine movie. Not the newer one, but the older one. I don't know where it's from, but it's have you seen it? It's like based on the H.G. Wells book, Time Machine.
H.G. Wells, yeah. I think it's from the early 60s.
Yeah,
it's,
probably.
Technicolor. Yeah, there was the Morlocks were the aggressive group. I can't remember.
Yeah, and then there were these other people who lived on the surface. Yeah, and those on the surface seemed a little bit like these ones because as I remember, they were like having not a lot of technology, and they look all like kind of nudish people. Maybe they weren't nude. Maybe they were only nude from the 60s standard.
Sorry, I'm Googling
to see how they look like.
Wikipedia. I just wanted to remember what they were called. The Eloi. So pretty close to the Edo.
Oh, yeah. Then it is maybe based on them, perhaps.
A similar situation happened in the episode of Doctor Who's first season, The Daleks. There's a group on that planet. They're all blonde. They're all fit and sexy. And they're called the Thals. They were pacifists. Like, it was pretty similar. The woman's wig is terrible. Ravon. It's like a 80s perm.
Yeah, and I don't know. That also seems weird with the blonde hair, you know. It's like a weird combination to have really tight curls and also blonde. That's not very usual in the hair combination.
It was super usual in the 80s when this came out. My mom had a perm
maybe
like
they
that.
have perms, yeah.
I like this moment where Riker says, they certainly are fit. And Troy goes, they certainly are. So Ravon and Leotor arrive. They're super horny for the crew. I looked up what the woman who played Ravon was in, and I didn't recognize a lot of it. But in 2020, she did a parody of Star Trek with Snoop Dogg and like 20 other Star Trek actors. It looks absurd as fuck. I'm going to watch it right after this. It's called Unbelievable with like 5 exclamation points.
That's fun.
I
wonder if she plays herself then, like the same character.
I doubt it, or else they'd have to pay the writer. I think they must be all different characters.
Ah, okay.
The Kirk character is played by a puppet, like from a Jerry Anderson movie from the 80s or 70s. It's just like a toy that barely moves.
That sounds fun. You should tell me later if it's fun. Maybe we can watch it for this show, in the end.
That would be amazing. It's like an hour and a half. Okay, so God, there's this moment where one of them goes, slowly, slowly, I must welcome this lovely one. Oh, it was Leotor to Troy. And she gives them this light shoulder pat. Next, Yar gets this like super close hug with Leotor. Like, it was almost like they'd already boned and they were just kind of checking in.
Yeah.
Troy goes, "Healthy sensuality, sir. I feel mainly friendship and happiness." Oh, I love her so much. Oh, and then Ravon says, "And I welcome this huge one," to Worf.
And I welcome this huge one. Oh, yes.
Nice planet.
Yeah, and later she doesn't want to have sex with any of them because they're too fragile.
Let me see. I wrote that one down as well. Let me jump ahead. Maybe I didn't write down the quote, but yeah, Klingons are too buff for. Yeah, Klingons can't bone humans. I wrote they're too small and weak. And Riker suggests that if a human said that, it would be bragging. And Worf goes, "Bragging, sir?" He says, "I'm gonna pass on that." It's almost like we shouldn't talk about sex at work, Riker. Or I mean, Worf. We shouldn't talk about sex at work, or Worf.
But it is a weird combination, I suppose, because they do go there for work, but then, like, I don't know, how far did they go during their work time? Maybe they should have had a shore leave before.
They went awfully far. I mean, we didn't get to see the advance team before the episode, like where Yar might have already screwed that guy. We have no idea what their protocol was on that part of the mission. But here, they're clearly like, well, as long as we're here, let's get down to business.
Maybe they're like, we have to follow the customs, we cannot be rude.
Yeah.
And also they
go along.
Yeah. What do they call, because they went to one of the buildings and it was called like the council hall or something like that.
Yeah, the council chambers. What do you think of this set? It's sort of an indoor-outdoor situation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I liked it overall. I didn't have a lot of thought about, I guess I haven't thought, like, so far I have not had a lot of thoughts about the sets except when they're on the ship. Then I've been like interested to see what is the ship like. But I guess the other ones, they feel a little bit bland, except when we were in the pilot, we were at this place where everything felt like a cave. That was kind of weird.
Yeah, they feel too sparse. Like a real square like that, the architecture would have little designs, or like it'd be more weathered with cracks or moss or whatever. There'd be more stuff, or more like, I don't know, cracks in the concrete or flower petals. Here there's just some
yeah, I think so.
Some potted plants and a matte painting. some public art.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like it goes into the background for me because it's very bland. And then I look more at like, what are the different people, what are they doing? But I will try to think maybe next time I'll look at it to really see, like, does this look like a place people live in? But this one, it did feel a little bit like it was just like a totally empty space that they were hanging out in. But I felt like it kind of fit because they were so much outdoors, so that maybe it was more like a shelter, they don't need a lot of comfort there. Yeah. But it was funny, they had like this massage table or something.
Yeah, it's rare when they're in studio to show the ceiling, right? Because it would require a lot of extra building. At one point on the bridge, we do see a window in the roof with like Geordi and Picard in shot. But down on the planet, I guess it's too expensive. And they didn't have CGI back then where they could make a roof or a dome or whatever.
Yeah, they can do so much now with CGI.
In Southern California, can you just do oil massages outside? Like, no big deal.
Probably.
So Wesley is kind of skeezed out by all this adult horniness.
Yeah,
and then they run everywhere.
Inappropriate. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I was weirded out by the, the overall, the society. But then I was like, oh, they're running. That's great. But they don't have enough support, to be running. It would be uncomfortable. they have this, tiny. It's like doesn't hold,
There-
the body parts.
There are potently no women with more than a B cup on this planet.
No.
Maybe that's why they focus on fitness, because they don't want to have to deal with, they don't have to develop stronger bra technology.
Yeah. If someone has like problems, they're like, okay, this is only the problem of fitness. But maybe the AI made them, all the genes are like small breasts.
Okay. If so, that would suggest a more stagnant society, which brings me to the Prime Directive. In Star Trek lore, the Prime Directive sort of its rules developed over time, but I think by this point the rule had already been set that they can't visit cultures openly that don't have warp travel.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. Yeah.
This planet clearly does not have warp travel, so what are we doing here? It's never addressed.
Yeah. Maybe they were like, we have to go there because it's the sexy planet.
My theory is like some Starfleets crash landed there once, and so like once the toothpaste is out of the tube, they're just like, oh, okay, well, we can go back.
Yeah, but I agree. I was happy that this was the case because I thought that's what it was, that you were not allowed to make contact at all. So then I'm happy that I didn't misunderstand this.
Yeah, maybe they didn't want to muddy the waters because this is a Prime Directive focused episode. They wanted to keep it on the justice part of it. But it required them to be low tech for there to be a disparity between the low tech people and the high tech.
Yeah, I think could have probably, I don't know, maybe they could have. So they have to have warp drive. They can't just be, spacefarers or.
Right. They have to have warp drive. There are all these exceptions. Like if they accidentally meet, starfaring races and it's like weirdly integrated, that's fine. One of the carve outs, though, for some reason, is if there's trade, which definitely came up a lot in the original series. They were always running into low tech people. So I think maybe that they must have warp travel rule didn't enter the canon until later.
Yeah.
That's my theory. But like even when Star Trek Discovery goes back to way farther, or I guess Enterprise was the earliest, even back then the Vulcans were like, they gotta have warp travel before you interact with them. Riker says, as they're running, Riker says, when in Rome, eh? And Worf goes, when and where, sir? Which is pretty wild considering he grew up on Earth in Russia.
Oh.
They just never talked about ancient Rome, apparently.
Oh, so they...
Yeah, he was adopted.
Oh, I didn't know this.
He was adopted by humans. I guess he was a teen by then. Maybe he missed the Rome course.
Yeah. Or maybe they changed it later to the background.
Yeah, maybe after World War III, Rome just got turned into something else. Good health to you. Happiness to you. It's like an Eden here. I think that was Troy that said that last one. There's an older lady I saw, and maybe it was just her hair, but it was white and like looked more like an older lady, but I didn't zoom in or anything.
I hope there's some older people. Otherwise, it would be also weird. Everybody's just in the same age.
Have you seen Logan's Run?
No.
It's a movie from the 70s where the society, everybody is sort of suicided at age 30 by some like powerful weapon or something. Beam. Everybody lines up in this circle and gets zapped.
Yeah, maybe that's what's happening here.
Maybe they wanted us to fear that might be a possibility. I wonder where the location is. I mentioned that. Children. Okay. One of these child actors, supposedly, is way too old. He has an absurd amount of chest hair.
I agree. They didn't look that childlike. I think both of the boys looked pretty old.
Yeah. I wrote, OMG, it's like friggin' Barbie with all these cheesy Aryans and their silly harps and yoga. So the hotties split up the team. I'm wondering if it's sinister or just strange. On my second rewatch, I wrote, God, it's hard to watch this one twice in a row. It gets better later on. Back on the bridge, it's much more intense than whatever's happening down on the planet. They hail this invisible something. It halfway appears. It triggers a red alert. Picard looks gravely to commercial.
This was worked, Yeah, because they showed the planet, and the planet's so like very paradise-like, and then they have this threat coming up in space. I thought it was a nice combination.
Yeah, I like this effect, this sort of half visible space station sort of thing. Ooh, another way it's kind of like the TARDIS is that it exists in multiple places at once. So it's almost like a transportation hub. And I bet they different groups of them monitor different planets or different universes or whatever.
Yeah, that might be.
There's a place like that in the last season of Discovery. It's sort of trans-dimensional. Let's see. Picard says Geordi off to look at that thing with a visual scan. And so he goes to a observation lounge and studies
like a window.
It with his visor.
They have so much of this where they rely a lot on the senses. Like people, when they talk, at least so far, they have been like, oh, I'm looking at it now. Like it looks like this, it looks like that. And it seems like they're looking at the screen, and here he's looking through the window. And yeah, I know that he has the visor, but realistically, everything that his visor sees, you could have the ship portray as well, I assume. The ship sensors could sense the same things.
They make a distinction with Geordi, as if his sensors in his visor are more powerful or more precise than a computer's sensors, which I think, at least in our world, would be silly, right? All the technology would be, it would be transferable between a mobile item and a fixed item.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it interesting. It makes it a little bit dated, that it seems like they have a lot of faith in the human sensory organs, and we would be like, oh, it's better probably to have a computer and, to get more of an analysis than to actually look at it and make some kind of judgment based on your, input to your eyes and such.
Yeah, I think in a production sense, it gives them a way to make another character more useful than Data in certain situations. Like surely a super advanced android would have all manner of visual sensors, but we give it to a human so we can relate better.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Human imagination and all that.
Yeah, and the way that they talk about it, it is more fun for us to view it, and to see it like that than to have people just looking at a screen. But I think that probably it would be much more like looking at the screen and just saying, oh, the computer says it's like this, and it would not be as visual.
Yeah, he says it's as if it's not really there. And I noticed that when Picard gets really quiet, it's super compelling. I think because usually he's way out here. And then when he gets like, tell me, Geordi, it's like, ooh, I'm serious. So the being is basically saying stand by to Data, and then something comes out of it, something very small. It pops inside the ship. Pretty decent effect as it floats around the corridor.
Yeah.
And at 12:03, Picard says, "Why has everything become a something or whatever?"
Why has everything become a something or a whatever?
But that is like a universal quote. Like, we should keep that on a soundboard for, like, you know, they're always being like a kind of this or that or something.
Yeah, that could be funny to bring it in as a soundboard.
There's a great supercut on YouTube of like all the kind ofs and somethings. It shows up on the bridge and it shakes the ship as it talks. I talked about that. It asks
Is it also
if they plan
really
to
loud?
leave people.
Yeah. Do you think that it's also very loud, or is it just that the ship is shaking that people are reacting to?
Well, our characters don't like clutch their ears, so
Yeah.
I'm thinking no.
Maybe it wasn't. I thought because they looked kind of uncomfortable, I thought they were like, oh, it's loud. But maybe it
Yeah,
is.
maybe.
Maybe it's not meant to be.
Is it earthquake loud?
But I also like the way that it was kind of confused and hostile, because they were just like, what did they say at first? It was like,
Do you plan to leave beings on our planet?
No, that wasn't
Yeah,
the-
state your purpose.
yeah, I guess it was that stated purpose. And it was somehow like a little bit confusing, I thought, the question. So I don't remember if that was the first question.
So it goes state the purpose, and then it goes state the purpose of what you have done, talking about leaving colonists on a nearby planet.
Ah, okay.
And it wants to know if they plan to do the same thing here. Essentially, what we might ask a foreign power, are you planning to leave more, like if the Native Americans had been more organized, they might have been like when people landed at Jamestown, like, hey, you left some people up north in Richmond or whatever a while back. Is this going to be a whole thing? Like, am I going to expect this in all my planets, all my coastal areas or whatever? Yeah, there are some interesting parallels to the past. Maybe the Aztecs are the closest parallel to this, where like they're powerful enough to represent a threat to the invaders. Whereas most societies were just obliterated instantly, largely because of the effect of diseases that sort of came into areas before we even landed our colonies. I say we, the British or the Spanish or the Dutch or whoever.
Yeah.
They'd already been decimated by plague, so there were more empty areas. There were fewer people to coordinate a defense, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. They don't have that here, any plagues or anything. I guess they have dealt with all these viruses and stuff. Maybe they can control it in the Star Trek universe.
I don't know if it's canon in the show, but the idea is that every time they transport or take a shuttle, there's some sort of beam that returns their bodies to like a healthy stasis. But the idea that you could neutralize every sort of airborne object from our bodies seems unlikely.
Yeah.
But apparently they call them biofilters, filter out anything the computer recognizes. But there are a few diseases, for whatever reason, that transporters can't get rid of. But like we never see somebody dying of cancer, for example. It's always like Rigelian Fruitbat syndrome or something.
I love that. I guess it would be funny if they had a normal if they had a normal disease that we have now, and that's like the only one that is still left, that they're like, oh, we have like dealt with everything, but we like we can't deal with. Now I'm trying to think of something that is fatal but not
It's
as common.
COVID-19. Not this again. Fuck.
That's like COVID.
They have to
3000.
start over the Greek alphabet because they run out of variants. They're like, the Omega Chi Delta. Fuck. When is this going to end?
Yeah. But yeah, it is interesting that the idea that you could just take out the viruses and stuff. And I guess that also depends on how
Oh, you're freezing up on me.
transferable. And
Let's turn our videos off. See if that helps at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I said they can interbreed, right? Most of the aliens with each other, so they would be very similar in the genetic sense.
Right. This is probably a function of production, but also because Roddenberry was horny, he needed the humanoids to be able to interact sexually.
Oh, but they could have sex.
Breed.
Yeah, I mean they could have sex, but what I mean is that there are a lot of people seems going around to be like half human, half other alien. So you could have them have sex without producing a child, but.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most legendary characters from the original series, Spock, is half human and half Vulcan. So it's like baked into the canon. And eventually, in a Star Trek TNG episode, we learn some kind of lore that sort of tries to explain that, how they're so compatible. But the scientific theory about it is that in order for species to interact at all, their biology would have sort of similar markers so that they'd be able to think similarly enough to communicate. And so they'd have grown up on similar worlds. And so their biology is compatible. Because, like, they're growing food on other planets, whereas in The Expanse, they're explicit about the biosphere on every planet is different and incompatible. Whereas in Star Trek, it's like every regular planet they go to is humanoid friendly.
Yeah. I mean, it would be kind of weird that they can breed with each other, because if we look at our planet, we can't even breed with, chimpanzees or something that are very close relatives. So it is, but maybe, I don't know if this is explained or explored, but maybe they're doing some kind of scientific way to create the babies, like, or are they just fucking and they're like, oh, there's a half Vulcan, half human baby.
Okay, well, in the case of Spock, who would have been our first example, his dad is a Vulcan who are extremely logical. So it's not canon that they did some sort of science process or metaphysical process to do it. But the way Vulcans talk about Spock is that he's sort of an abomination, that he was created or like intentionally molded to be partially human. Like, they're very racist about it. A lot of Vulcans is like his father Sarek and human Amanda did something bad by having him.
Oh, so it is, maybe that does support this idea that it could be some kind of thing that doesn't happen very easily, that you have to maybe get into the genetics of it.
Yeah. In TNG, Worf has a baby with a half-human Klingon, and so becomes a father that way. But Alexander, his son, being at all human is, I don't think, rarely ever addressed, other than that he's a little like weaker constitutionally than Klingons in terms of how he thinks. But that could just be cultural because he was raised among Starfleet.
Yeah, that's also one of those.
We just have very
questions.
few examples.
So if you had to have a child with like an alien in the Star Trek, what would you choose?
Betazoid. I'll have a little Deanna Troi. Ooh, or a Trill like Jadzia Dax. That might be nice. Betazoids Bajorans are too religious for my taste.
I don't know what the
Vulcans
trills are.
too logical. Trills are a lot like humans, but their society revolves around keeping this sort of symbiotic being alive. They're sort of these super long-lived worms that they've evolved to like grow inside them. And so Jadzia is like 30, like a 30-year-old woman, but the being that lives inside her symbiotically is like 800 years old or something. One of our characters knew her as he was a man.
So when the woman dies, the worm moves to another body?
Yes, we even see that in the show later on, like a Trill symbiote being moved because the original person died.
And then but the worm is not the consciousness. It's like a paired consciousness.
It's paired, yeah. Like the symbiote retains all the memories of its previous host, but it sort of like partitions them so that the new host won't be overwhelmed by all those memories. But like anytime the symbiote wants to access them, it knows it. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that could be cool to have this kind of internet in your back of your mind to be like, oh, I have to look it up, whatever it is. But I guess you would have to have, you would want someone that lived like a useful life so that you had like a lot of facts and stuff to look up. So it's not just like all this like, oh, this is how you play all these different sports or something. That I would not be interested in.
That's interesting. I think one of their past lives was an artist. One might have been an athlete. One was definitely a pilot and a member of Starfleet. And then one was a serial killer. I think that was the artist. Great episode about that guy. That was a pretty progressive character. There was even an episode where she almost got back together with an old girlfriend, but they didn't have the guts back then to do it. To show it on screen, at least.
It would be funny if they redid a lot of these older episodes, if they tried. I guess it maybe wouldn't work, but it would just be kind of funny if they tried to do the same story, like the exact same story and all of, but then they just could do, they wouldn't have to be restricted, and how would that be? But maybe it would just feel too campy anyway.
Yeah, I don't think, because Star Trek retains almost all its old canon, the producers just decided to do it that way. So they can't really get away with repeating old plots. They have to kind of wedge them into new plots, so they're not copying them directly. But yeah, that would be awesome to redo old eps with new social mores or technological developments like factored into the writing. Okay, let's get back to it. The Thing wants to know if they're planning to leave folks here. Picard's like, no, we're just visiting. It wants to know why it left people at the last one. So I have to ask, is it telepathic? And so it just learned that they left colonists. It's been spying on them, so has it been listening to their conversations? Or can it scan through light years of space?
I'm thinking it's the later, that because they say later that this one is in this whole region of this what do you call it, like the universe or something. So I think that it's just like looking at all the different stars, like, oh, there's someone there, but I don't know. I wonder then, do they plan for their blonde people to go like to the stars? So maybe they're just keeping all the planets available for them.
Ooh, right. Are there many different versions of the Edo from different biological lines? Are they all the same? Or have the Edo not colonized any of them yet because they don't have warp travel yet?
It would be funny if there were other
That's
Edo
interesting.
people and they just try this different. Maybe they have a lot of different systems for them. They could be funny.
That's interesting you say that, because there's an episode of Star Trek Voyager where we meet a people that were seated there by the Sky People. It's sort of an Ancient Aliens pastiche. We have that on Earth in Gilgamesh. In Sumerian myth, there was a period of time where different gods were sort of molding the local population to evolve their culture and society to like get technology. Or even the myth of Prometheus giving the fire to the people.
Yeah, there can be some different interference like this in different religions. Yeah, I was thinking, if they wanted to redo this plot, they could just come back and visit them again. And then it would be like, maybe they are advanced a little bit, but they have the same kind of culture.
Oh, that is a brilliant idea. Lower Decks has been canceled, so it would have to be Prodigy or some news show, but that would be so cool. I wonder if they did any books about that. I'll have to investigate. Did they ever come back to the Edo? Maybe a comic book. Yeah, in Mistborn, we get like a time jump, so we get to see where the society has gone. That'd be so cool to get that. Oh, and the new series, Starfleet Academy, is going to be like 900 years in the future. So we'll be able to see what that's like.
900 years from this one, or from where?
From Discovery, which was 100 years earlier. So I guess 800 years or so in the future. From this point. Picard says that humans seek to protect themselves by seeding parts of themselves as widely as possible. I thought that was an elegant description of evolution and cultural transfer. But also relating us to like trees, just spreading around the earth.
We found that world uninhabited. The life forms we left there had sought the challenge, at least that is the basic reason, had sought the challenge of creating a new lifestyle, a new society there. Life in our world is driven to protect itself by seeding itself as widely as possible.
The sphere wants to share information with Data. Picard says, go ahead. And then the sphere bonks Data's head and he just drops down for the count. And there's this like drama sting. Like it was so, yeah. What did you think of that moment?
I wasn't sure if it fell because of the swear. It was a little bit like, did the swear push him down, or was it more like the swear touched his head and then it fell because it was like unconscious? It was a little bit confusing to me.
It's the latter, and Data is apparently designed to just lay prone if he goes unconscious as a robot, whereas a person might have like grabbed a console and rolled, he just goes
Oh
down.
Yeah. That's true. It was turned off, seemed like.
Yeah, it's almost like he has a subroutine that's like the last thing it does is gently place him down on the ground.
And it also before that, it was talking to him, through his brain or something. So maybe it realized, okay, I can work with this, and I will look to him. And actually, I thought, I had some different theories that didn't pan out, and one of them was that, later on they talk about the emotions of this. I don't know how to exactly quote it, but they talk a little bit about the law, and like emotions relating to it. And then I thought, this bubble will not be able to get it because it only talked to Data, so they won't know the emotions of this, of the humans. But it didn't matter.
Okay, I'll have to kind of speed along here. We've got about 10, 20 minutes left, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Let's see. The hairy chest adult child does a handstand walk. The girl wants to get freaky with Wes, but he's not ready for that. And then it turns out she just wants to play with a ball. They're running around. Riker at one point is like, "Are you going to screw Worf?" And he's like, "I do not need pleasure, Captain. I am a warrior." And that's when he does the like, humans are too weak thing.
Yeah.
I am not concerned with pleasure, Commander. I am a warrior.
There's a lot of people again saying, "Wesley, the boy."
Including Wesley, the boy.
So then they find out that there's no crime here whatsoever because they execute somebody every time the punishment zone moves into that area. And the crew is like, "Oh shit, we got to find Wesley."
Yeah.
That's when Wesley goes long for a pass and falls into
No,
the
wait.
flowers.
You said it. You summed it wrongly. It was like they lost control with the ship, and that's when they're like, "Oh, we should gather everyone."
Oh, right. They lost comms. So that's when they got like, "We got to all get together." And then Yar finds out that there's a death penalty.
Oh, yeah.
Anyone who commits any crime in the punishment zone dies.
The law is the law.
They kind of get together at Wesley's location right after the mediators come and tell him that like they have to kill him. They're like, "What did you do?" Wesley and the other kid kind of explain it. And he says, "How very sad, but this zone has been selected. And, you know, basically you have to die." One of them pulls out a vial of poison. And they're like, "Are you prepared for punishment?" The guy goes over to dose him. And that's when shit pops off. The team is like beating them all up. They take the vial. Yara inspects it, and it's like some kind of syringe. Riker is real pissed off. They still can't raise the ship. Up in space, we got more space stuff happening. Crusher is scanning the unconscious data. She can't tell what's happening, but he seems normal. Still no comms from the away team. The sphere fucks off. Comms are restored. And that's when Yar says she wants to talk to Picard. They say they need him. Data's still asleep. Picard has him sent to sickbay, and then he beams down.
At first, I thought this was a trap, you know, because they restored the comm, and they were just like, "Oh, we needed to be down there." And I thought maybe it was like the robot that was, or not the robot, but you know, the bubble thingy that was pretending that they should come.
So, like, it either wanted to trap Picard on the planet, or it wanted to get him off the ship so it could do something to the ship.
I thought it was that they wanted him to come to the planet, but just because I wasn't sure why they restored the comm at this point. But I was just trying, you know, I tried to find all these different possible plot points. I was like, maybe this is trap, maybe this is happening, making it too complicated.
It seems sinister in the moment. Looking back from the end, I would say they're just really curious as to how the Starfleets are going to do this. They're trying to learn more about us. Troy's like, "These people are honest and proud of their traditions." They sit down to chat. Leotor's like, "Hey, man, I'm sorry. We got to kill the boy. We can wait, though." Leotor says their tranquility is made possible by old laws. And Picard says their own laws, the humans' laws, haven't always been fair, but they are now. And that execution was outlawed. The guy's like, "Well, are you saying we're primitive because we still do execution?" And he's like, "Execution used to be thought necessary." And I thought that would have been useful at the time when this came out to sort of shake people up and be like, do we really need to be executing people?
Some people felt that it was necessary, but we have learned to detect the seeds of criminal behavior. Capital punishment in our world is no longer considered a justifiable deterrent.
So, we are not yet as advanced as they are.
Is this the time when he's talking about how they deal with it because they can detect the seed of criminal behavior?
Yes, that was unusual. I was wondering if you'd noticed that.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. Is it like eugenics where they look at the genes and like, oh, this fetus is not good, or is it like that they see, this person has like potential criminal behavior, so we will just, do some therapy or something or treatment early on.
It's rarely explained, but I believe in the original series, a tricorder can tell if you're a killer or, somebody inclined to do bad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of hinted that there are treatments, but it's very vague. It's not like Baton treatment that we like are pretty sure we can it's sort of a Clockwork Orange thing. Or drugs. Maybe it's drugs in that one.
I'm sorry, Alex. This is for your own good. You'll have to bear with us for a while.
But it's not fair! It's not fair! I should feel ill when I hear Laughlin, Whitford!
But now we know that human brains are just far too complex for that. And even some traits of killers or psychopaths or whatever are useful in society in certain circumstances,
Yeah.
Whether to be soldiers or cops or surgeons or whatever it is.
I don't know. I think that I'm not sure that I agree with that one. But yeah, it could be in certain, or, you can't really decide, we want this particular trait, but not the other. Like it's hard to separate everything into binaries, I'm sure. Like there is a lot of, of course, there's a lot of instances of, the question about like creativity and like how that relates to other personality traits and stuff, and it would be hard to like pick one or not the other with different things.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm bipolar, which has often been linked to creativity. I'm autistic, which I mean, Hitler tried to wipe us out, like it's if we found out how to sense that somebody was a criminal or was going to be, that would go down a very dark road in terms of eugenics or manipulation with chemicals or whatever it is.
Yeah.
In terms of human rights, it's a little dicey.
It is, but I think that there will continue to be a discussion because we are getting more and more knowledge about these things, and will people try to choose certain traits, and will that make our population worse because it will be too much, homogeneous and not homogeneous, and not as diverse maybe in personality wise. So
Star Trek chose to make the Federation illegal to genetically modify fetuses or like, cells in utero. But they can use genetic treatments on a living person, like a birthed person, to solve diseases and stuff. It's like there's a weird line.
I was just gonna say about the criminal behavior though, that it was like they have seen, there are a lot of ways to predict if a person is gonna be like having trouble with like criminality, because it's connected a lot to, I mean, not necessarily the upbringing, but like I guess the family dynamics is a big part of it, and then there's also probably some part of it is like genetic. If you have like, for example, a parent that is, has certain personality, what would you call it, like antisocial or something, then it's more likely that the child has it. So I think that you could have like in Star Trek that it is like, oh, we see now in this toddler, it is potential criminal. We have to do like intervention. And it doesn't need...
I mean, essentially what we're talking about is if you could detect that somebody is prone to having a personality disorder, is it ethical to cut that out of them or to treat that as they go. In Babylon 5, psychics are kind of a stand-in for that. They're heavily regulated. One of the choices is to be treated so your psychic powers don't work. You take drugs your whole life and they make you feel bad. So there's different ways of doing it. Here they put a bright line. People don't murder anymore, like everything's a lot more civilized.
Yeah.
Somehow.
And I think that it's fun to explore these kind of things, and I think that not everything has to be taken to the dark underside, but it's still interesting to think about, like, what does it mean? Is it moral, And of course, like, what is moral shifts, So maybe these people in the future will think it's moral to do things that we don't think is. And at the same time,
yes.
Yeah.
And Star Trek has always, I think, put these rails on the human civilization so that they can have a layer of separation by giving these thorny ethical issues to alien societies. They make it slightly more palatable to the viewer who maybe has conservative leanings or what have you, traditional religious beliefs. They kind of tease, and science fiction in general teases with that line.
That's true. It's a little bit more removed then.
Yeah, that remove makes it a little easier to approach if you're not ready for it, those progressive ideas. Picard asks about the thing up above the planet. He says it's not completely solid, and we realize that that's their god, that they've maybe seen it before or have stories about it. It's a little vague, but Picard's like, exactly how would you describe God? And they say when God wants to display its power, it's very powerful. I don't think those are the exact words.
But when God wants to show its power, it can make itself felt most fully.
They promise Wes will be safe until sundown. And there's this interesting moment where Picard says, one of you will come with us. And Ravon says, I'll go as a hostage. And he says, no, it's not like that. We need you to identify something.
Yeah, so they do have the concept of a hostage then.
Yeah, it's like they're well read on their previous brutal society almost. They just don't do that stuff anymore.
Yeah.
There's this great music sting as they transport up. I might drop that in. It's just amazing. They're walking down the halls. Ravon is shocked. Crush, and then Dr. Crusher shows up. And I feel like this is where the episode really starts, because everything's been set up. Wes is in danger, and Dr. Crusher comes to Picard, and she's like, you cannot let them kill my son. And Picard is like, hey, not yet. I gotta identify this thing and whatnot. He asks if she can speak to it. And the ship starts coming closer, menacing them. And the voice says, return my child.
Return my child.
Picard gives her the communicator. They beam her down, and the ship backs off.
He doesn't like them, interfering with their people.
Yeah. Which is good. I mean, when the colonizer came to this continent, they just grabbed people and took them back, and nobody could do anything about it. Picard tells Troy he's sorry for frightening Ravon. And she's like, sharing an orbit with God is scary.
It's understandable, sir. Sharing an orbit with God is no small experience.
Crusher begs Picard to save Wesley. He says that thing is super dangerous. She says, if he was your son, you'd be as frightened. And he goes, but I am. We can only assume because he's part of the ship, part of the crew, her son.
Yeah, I also thought like that.
I apologize, sir, but this is very difficult for me. If he were your son, you'd be as frightened.
But I am.
Data wakes back up, fills him in. That's when we learn it's like this interdimensional vessel, sort of space station, whatever. And that they own the entire star cluster. It wants them to put the colony elsewhere.
Yeah, I like the questioning of Data. It's always fun when they do this kind of joke where it's like, no, you have to be, don't, when they have like a character that is too literal and they have to be like, no, you have to elaborate.
I'm not aware that I ever babble, sir.
Crusher's like, you're babbling. She takes off. Yes. And then Data goes, you're right, sir. I do tend to babble. She's like, they don't want to execute my son.
What has happened?
The Edo want to execute my son.
Yeah, and then Data is like, oh, this is the female mother instinct or something. And she's like, bah, don't say.
She is so upset. Picard's like, do they know about the Prime Directive? And he goes, they know everything I know.
That's when I was concerned, because I was thinking, oh, they will not then know, the feelings, so it will be too impersonal for this machine or whatever the alien is.
They may not have the same morals or reason.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be something where they would have to maybe bring the mom down, like Dr. Crusher. She would have to come there to like somehow prove. I don't know. I didn't really have a full idea of it, but I thought maybe there would be some trouble with, having all of the information from the purely logical character.
Picard's wondering how he can explain why they can't execute Wes. Which I thought was good. We're learning more about Picard and his values.
Would you choose one life over 1,000, sir?
I refuse to let arithmetic decide questions like that.
Crusher comes in. She wants to beam down to the planet. They both go down there together. And he says, whatever the cost, I will not allow them to execute your son. And she is deeply moved.
You can accompany me while I try and resolve this. And you should know that whatever the cost, I will not allow them to execute your son.
Down on the planet, one of them's like, bring the boy.
I want the boy brought here now.
Ravon bows and gives Picard his communicator back. She's like, you must be gods. And he says, no, we are not gods, and lets her up.
Do you think if he had said, like, yes, we are gods, that maybe they could make an exception or something for them, and then so that he was honest there? Or do you feel like that was just a side thing?
Well, I mean, it would be illegal under Federation law, but it would also risk the alien from killing everyone.
Yeah.
Or risk that happening. But yeah, I mean, in our world, right? That's what Cortez did, like play into their old myths and legends. Yeah, the boat's the feathered serpent or whatever. I don't know the specifics of what he said, but it was something to that effect.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, if that was meant to be some kind of temptation, because they had this discussion before where they're like, oh, we have to follow the laws, like we can't make an exception for you. And then now when they say, oh, you're a god, maybe they could be like, yes, and you can make an exception, and maybe hope that the alien would be fine if the people in the planet were okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a different sci-fi show would have done that.
No, I don't mean that
but
they...
because it's...
I don't mean that they were... that I thought that they would do it. I just meant that in this situation where she says, like, you are a god, that it was meant to be kind of a moral dilemma. Like, do we pretend that we're gods? Or if it was just like, no, that was never going to work. So I thought maybe it was meant to be like a moral dilemma where they could have maybe tried this angle and they didn't. It
is a good hanging thread. Like, I wouldn't mind seeing an episode that that does that. I think there are several episodes through the course of Star Trek where somebody pretends to be a god
Yeah, I
to
can
have
imagine
that kind of power. But Starfleet is like, you can't do that. And they shut it down.
And I mean, they do in some sense. This episode is about that because the weird alien machine is pretending to be a god. If we think of like a god as different from this alien machine.
Yes.
But you mean like someone that is pretending to be a god in order to get their own, agenda? Is that what you're saying with the other?
Right. Somebody without godlike power. Like in this case, the thing has godlike power. It seems more or less immortal, so it can span the length of their civilization. It seems to be improving them slowly over time. So it's pretty much indistinguishable from God. Whereas a lot of times in these episodes, it's just some schmo using tech to like pretend to be more powerful. The stuff we did in our colonizing history.
Yeah.
I mean colonizers. Wes shows up. He's like, are you going to let them kill me? And Picard's like, we can't, but we need to talk to these folks about it. He says, perhaps your system is better than our old one, but he has to protect his people. And Riker said it has to do with another law we must obey. And they talk a little bit about the Prime Directive. The mediator says, if you do that, our God will punish you. And this is when we get Wesley kind of being self-sacrificing.
Sir, does this mean if you save me, the entire crew could die?
You're not involved in this decision, boy.
What did you think of that moment?
I thought maybe it would go further, because it goes really only as far as that. I thought maybe it would be some kind of extra drama where, I don't know, where it went even more like, oh, you have to leave me or something.
Well, yeah, I think if he was an adult, it would be possible. But I think this show is telling the kids watching, like, we're not going to put Wesley intentionally in that kind of danger. Like, kids don't get to decide to sacrifice their lives, right?
No, and I guess it would have been weird if it was if he had done more. But I guess that's what I was expecting, that it would be some kind of extra wrinkle, with his reaction or something. But it like you said, it's kind of cut off. Like, no, this is not an option.
There definitely are episodes like that where characters are accused of a crime or actually did a thing, like in this case, and they have to sacrifice themselves for the Prime Directive. Usually it works out without them being executed or whatever.
I'm happy to hear.
And this thing wraps up super fast, right? This is the thing that happened a lot back then. Like, you have this whole interesting episode, and then the last 5 minutes, boom, it all comes together. Leotor's like, what about our laws? And Yar says, we have to think about Wesley. And then the team tries to transport, but it doesn't work. And Dr. Crusher is furious. One of the mediators says, we cannot allow ignorance of the law to become a defense. And this is essentially the scourge of human law and jurisprudence or whatever. Like, if you don't know the law, it doesn't matter. You're going down. But we make a piss poor effort to educate our humans and immigrants and refugees and stuff, like, what are the boundaries and what can happen to you. And then Picard gives his great speech, and this was sort of a thing that happens over and over again on this show, is Picard gives his noble, these are our values kind of speech, and it works out.
And I say to any creature who may be listening, there can be no justice so long as laws are absolute. Even life itself is an exercise in exceptions.
When has justice ever been as simple as a rule book?
Seems the Edo Lord agrees with you, number one.
Yeah, I liked it.
The Edo god agrees, sends him back to the ship. Back on the bridge, Picard hails the object. He says, "We will remove the human colonists if you signal us to do so." The being doesn't respond. It goes invisible, and Picard is left to wonder, like, what does this mean? And we never actually get an answer. Like, do they pick the colonists back up and move them? Or do they not have to?
I guess I saw it as you don't have to if it just leaves without responding. That's what I view it as.
That's so interesting. Ooh, and a future return to the Edo would show us that they've colonized their star cluster and that they are interacting with that human colony in their midst, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what would that have been like? Did they integrate and grow together, or did they fight? Did they cut off the human colony? Yeah, there's a lot of options.
Yeah, there could be a lot of questions. So I was going to say just that when they beam up in the last shot, that looks really weird when I looked at it. Like it looked old compared to, it was like they missed it in the remastering. Did it look weird for you too?
Yeah, some of the transporter effects, it looks like they didn't even get their whole body. Like throughout this, especially when they beamed Ravon from the ship back down to the planet, it was just sort of like just a few little bright lights. And
yeah, for me it was only in this last effect that it was somehow the whole screen changed as if it was like becoming this old TV or something. So it was a weird part of it.
Okay, that's gotta be they didn't hit it in the remaster for some reason. Yeah, when there's a I don't know the terms, but when they block out a shot, like an area in a green screen situation, and the area around it or the characters around it look fuzzed out, that happens super commonly with green screen stuff. And they like fix it, or they try to fix it in movies, but maybe don't have enough time or money in TV. But even in old movies, like you look at Mary Poppins or other things like that, where there's cartoons and people or high-tech effects and people, there's always gets that weird kind of fuzzed out, grayed out look to the background or to the characters that aren't being affected by the visuals. Sometimes it's really bad. I think they called it CSO, color separation something.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what it was, but yeah, it looked weird in some ways.
And that's the episode.
Yeah, that's it.
What'd you think?
Yeah, I liked it. I guess if we had more time, we could talk about, this moral question of, trying to save one person, risking all of the ship or something. But because it is interesting, like in which way, because I guess I will just mention it, but we don't have to get into it. But the idea, it's very common in stories that we have to save this one person, even if it means risking more people dying. And it seems to be some kind of universal feeling for humans that we want to do it in that direction. But yeah.
Yeah, usually in Star Trek and most stories, one person sacrifices for the good of everyone. And in this, it's that, I don't know, delicious tension between the two.
But I feel like it's also common that, one person is captured or, in danger or something. And they're like, we cannot leave this person behind. We have to get them also, even though it could endanger more people.
Yeah, it's pretty common in military stories where, leave no man behind is sort of an ethos we supposedly try to follow. And it's very common in stories. Or like when one person is kidnapped. Like I saw a Statham movie recently, Working Man, where one girl is kidnapped and he kills like dozens of people to get her back. Those are all criminals rather than, innocent people, but it is a common tale.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Any recommendations?
Nothing particular that I can think of. I have been reading some different things, but there's nothing that stands out really. It's just various things. I will maybe have to get back next time. I can say when I read more, maybe I would know to recommend it or not. What about you?
I think I've burned through all of mine, so I'll probably go to a podcast. I've started covering Doctor Who, the new season, with Jesse Ryan, and we met through the Adam Richard Has a Theory Facebook page. And Adam Richard is a longtime Doctor Who commentator. He had a show about the show called Whovians for a while, and it's just him. He does these short little episodes 5 times a week, or if you're a Patreon subscriber, you get them all at once. But and he talks about the episodes, but he also interacts with us, the listener, and so there's like this nice little community of friendly people. And so when we uploaded our episode, we shared it with that group, and Adam was like, "Oh, that's so exciting!" And he talked about it on the show. So we might get a few new listeners through there. So if you are here, thank you for coming by, folks. It's great to hear from you. And if you do want to reach out to us, it's greatandsecretknowledge@gmail.com, or you can reach me on all the socials at El Jefe Tacoma. And I've got other shows. Shattered Worlds RPG, that's a space opera actual play set in a world that I created. And I have a live stream every other Sunday at 6:30 Pacific Daylight Time called Omniversal Escapades. We play a bunch of different RPGs there. Recently, we played a Doctor Who pastiche with a sort of Bernie Summerfield character, if you know who that is. And one of them played like a covert doctor. It was a lot of fun. We play D&D over there, and Monster of the Week, all kinds of stuff. So check that out. And I think that's it for the plugs. Oh, rate, review, subscribe on iTunes, tell your friends, spread the word, and help us make this the best show it can possibly be. Anything else, Sophia?
No, I'm good.
All right. Thanks for sticking a little longer. I certainly did not think we would have this much to talk about.
It was me. I brought up too many tangent stuff.
Oh no. I love it. It's inevitable, especially because I was going into these like broad tangents about Star Trek lore and continuity and canon and all that. Well, thank you for listening, people. Until next time.
You were right, sir. I do tend to babble.
That's it.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Hey, do.
A huge thanks to James Lark of jameslark.co.uk for providing our wonderful theme song. Thank you, James.
The boy.
Me.
The boy.
Me.
My son.
Me.
Your son.
Ooh.
Take us out of here, number one.
Gladly, sir.